Hello, everyone, and welcome to Man of Character Part 2. Again, please excuse my voice. It's a little bit better today, but let's get into this drawing. So what we're going to watch now is me continuing to develop the facial expressions and the lovely character of this gentleman. And again, I work very different. I work very slow, even though you see this at a fast-paced movement. And I sometimes tend to go over and over and over things as I layer on my light graphite, and then I progressively get a little stronger and darker because there's a lot going on in this picture. And the more it gets developed, it's going to get to a point where you're going to see that the development could go on and on and on. I don't think even at the end of part 3 that I've actually gotten as dark of the values as I want. But here now you see me addressing the current situation in part 2, where I am establishing again the darks, the details, and the light and values of this drawing. I'm working right now on his clothing, and I wanted to try and put in all the darks that are going to be to the far right of the picture, so that once I start going back into the face, I could again establish a kind of a borderline of how dark everything else needs to be. And I have come to really respect this drawing to the utmost. So here now I'm continuing to work on the clothes. I'm putting in the darks. And just because I want to add another layer to the background. And while it may not appear so, look very closely and you can see the difference between what I'm applying right now and what the previous layer looked like. Even though it looked dark, you see it's actually getting darker. And again, all that's going to do is help push up all of the lights. The key sometimes in values is definitely addressing the darks and the lights and making sure that you're contrary to that. So when you apply some darks, you should definitely have other lighter values in and around it so that the darks help pop up all of those lighter and other values. And when I say other values, again, we're talking about the value scale, the darks, the lights, and the other colors in between. So now I'm going back into the face. And I have my glassine paper to help so I don't smudge, because there's a lot of soft pencil being applied here. And the use of the stump is definitely continual. So it's more like a wash, rinse, repeat. But the key here is to watch how this face really starts to come together. It's like the more and more I add these values and I work on these different character lines and add in as much of the detail and the darker values as I can, this face really starts to amaze me. You know, I got a lot of pleasure out of drawing this image. It was a practice. It was to stay in shape. It was to help keep my hands moving, my eye-hand coordination intact. Because as I go through this process of what I'm going through, which is mentioned in part 1, it's important for me to use this as therapy for me. But I'm sharing the drawing with you because I just want you to see the process. I am not good at making these videos, and it's very difficult for me sometimes to draw in this manner where the camera is above me and I have to keep everything pretty much flat. I'm usually spinning, flipping, turning my picture, but in order for me to show it in this manner and as close as I can, I have to work in a very kind of, for me, an unorthodox manner, which makes it, you know, not extremely difficult, but it's just not free form. It's not like I'm doing it off camera. And if I were to have drawn this off camera and then just show you the picture, you wouldn't see the process and you wouldn't even hear some of the stuff that I'm saying. So again, here I'm just establishing my darks, using the blender to help pull in some of the other values. And I'm trying my best to at least mimic as much as I can from this reference picture. And again, you're going to start to see it from, especially once I finish this bottom part of his face and I move into the top part of his face. OMG, it just starts to really become more and more interesting. And I really love how that taking of time, that layering of the graphite, that working from light to dark, that not just jumping in and pushing and pressing hard right away, leaving me a little room for development, keeping the picture very stable in the sense that I could kind of easily adjust certain things as I go along. The different darks that are in the character lines, I don't really want to remove those. So once I start making those dark, I'm happy. It's all of the other values in between to make sure that if I missed a character line or I needed a subtle change in value, that is there for me. So right now, as I'm working, I'm just trying to cover up all of the natural white, but to keep some of the lighter values intact in comparison to the darker values. And I think that even though I've done and completed 3, which I'll be posting after this one, I can go even darker. And I may do that because I don't try to adjust my pictures with any type of Photoshop or any type of publisher or anything like that. I do scan my pictures to save them onto my computer drive, but I don't make any adjustments to the natural drawing. And once you come to the end, I always show you what it looks like without the overhead view, which is completely different than what you're seeing here on the screen. Remember, I'm layering graphite, so some of the shine from the pencils is going to make some of the areas look like they're not painted or they're a little highlighted. But it's okay. Once you see the actual drawing and in that final stage at the end of each of these videos, you'll be able to see that everything was intact. And I just wanted to put a disclaimer out there so that you know that everything that I'm showing you is my hand, my eye-hand coordination, and my best attempt at trying to mimic the picture. So now as I work on the nose, I try to get the spots in. I try to increase some of the shadows as I move along because I'm getting to a point now where once all of this is done, it's really refining the details and trying my best, which has proven to be a challenge, to put in all of the hairs, all of the darks in the right places and the values. And you're going to see that I don't quite match up exactly, but oh my gosh, it is really an interesting piece once you see me working on 3, which is not that much different than what you're going to see here in 2. So I find part 2 to be a very important part of the whole bringing everything together process. And the reason that it has to be done in these different part 1, part 2, and part 3, because it's taken me 3 hours on one end, 2 hours and some change on another end. And then the final one, which I could have gone longer, but I had a little bit of a situation with my circumstance that I needed to kind of take it down. But I am going to come back and try and give it that good old college try and really put in those values that I think are really going to pull this picture together. And it's helpful for me. So even though it may seem a bit redundant to just keep going at something that does have a completed look to it, it's just me trying to like use this as a little bit of therapy for me to stay energized, stay focused, and try and work on my attention to detail, eye-hand coordination, value studies, all of that good stuff. So here now you can start to see that the face is really starting to come together. And the more I put in these little subtle character lines, these darks, and these various different places, the picture is really starting to match up. It's really starting to come together. And I'm very, very pleased with it. And I hope that you are taking this in for what I'm showing you, which is just my way of approaching a reference picture, a graphite drawing, using various different pencils, stumps, erasers, and mono erasers, and sometimes the gum eraser. But I'm just using my own skill set and my way of practicing, and also my way of using this as therapy and a reminder to why I just want to keep pushing through this, get better, and get back on my horse and really just push out more and more work. It's not so much content for me, because when I provide these videos, I'm not doing it to try and get an award from YouTube. I'm just sharing this with really you, as anyone who's happens on this channel and looks at these videos. But I have a lot of people out there with whom I kind of like stay in contact with, and we kind of draw and paint together. And I just wanted to be able to have it out there in case they're interested in seeing what I've been doing while I've been kind of laid up, as they say. So now this to me was probably, and still is, the hardest part, which is that far right hand side with the hair, as well as some of the value stuff. But to be honest, this got a little tricky for me. So you're going to see a kind of a artistic license rendering of this hair area, but then I come back in part 3 and try to refine it even better. So just remember, as you're drawing, that things like that happen, and that's why you want to work light and not really commit yourself like a jump shot, jumping in the air with the ball where you have to pass or shoot, so that you can make these subtle changes and erasers and add-ons as you go along. So the process of just taking those 2 hours, 3 hours, heck, it could be 9 hours. I wish I had a recording device that would give me like unlimited hours of drawing, and then you probably would see the whole thing in one fell swoop. But then I would have to take breaks again because of my circumstances, which is not an excuse. I'm just keeping it 100. So, and here at this point, I'm just trying to block in everything as best as I can, so that I could go back in and make whatever changes I need and add-ons that I need to continue increasing the detail, the values. Because once I get all of these lines in at the end of this, I pretty much am just value chasing at this point. I'm pretty much just looking at, trying to understand, read, mimic, and interpret the marks that I need to make in order to sustain those really good values that are in the original photo. Because the picture is really coming out very, very strong. And I think it deserves as much compliment as it can when it comes to all of the different value levels that are in the original painting. I just think it's well worth it. So here at this point, I'm using my eraser to try and regain back some of this mess that I'm making in this hair, but you'll see it adjust as it goes along. But look at how the picture has transformed from part 1. Look at how completing all of the character lines and adding the values and some details, that the picture is really beginning to kind of not only match up, but it's taken on a life of its own. So while I am interpreting the picture and interpreting the lines and the marks that I need to create it, sometimes you just have to be happy with that. Sometimes you may not make it all the way to exactness. I haven't reached that photorealism level yet, but I'm trying to get there when I work on stuff like this with details. I do work sometimes really quickly on areas and on things, and I don't worry so much about trying to be so intact. But I found myself here because of the recognition and looking at the image as it started to really match up, wanting to take this one as a step towards learning how to be a little bit more like precise, like almost with precision and execution, to actually render this picture to some degree of photorealism. It's a strong drawing, and it does have a lot of mess to it as well. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1, where like at this point here, I'm using the eraser again to try to reclaim back some of the lighter areas that I just went over with too much dark, and trying to like fix that little area up there. But as I'm painting, sometimes you have to pivot. Sometimes you have to make these adjustments. And I keep emphasizing that because I know that there are a lot of you out there that probably wouldn't want to spend 3 hours or 4 hours working on a drawing. Hey, you got better things to do. Me, I've kind of like, at this point, I'm kind of a lock-in. I'm kind of a shut-in, except for when I go for my treatments, but this is all I have to help me therapeutically and artistically just to stay in touch with myself. Now, I just want to preface this because we're coming to the end. My camera ran out. The battery died. So I maxed it out at 3 hours and 25 minutes. And it's just going to cut off and you're going to see the end. Here it comes now. See, that's the actual drawing.